10 yards of silpoly material. It's quite waterproof, very lightweight and tough. Next thing is the material that's more waterproof. It's going to go to the tub of the tent. 30D silnylon. Not very stretchy and quite waterproof. It feels almost fat. You need about 3.5 yards. The mesh or mosquito mesh, you need about 5 yards of this reinforcing patch material. It's very strong, durable material. It's going to go on the corners and in the places where the poles are going to hold your tent. Zippers for the mesh part on the inside. You need 8 feet on each door. Sliders, cord, elastic cord. 2-3 feet should be enough. Your guideline. 12 of them. Webbing, 3/4 inch webbing for the tie-outs on the tent. Finally, we need some to seal the stitching. the patch on the door. This is what we need to reinforce. I stitched it around earlier. Now I'm just going to put some lines across to reinforce it. There's going to be a second door on top of this, so you will not see much of this. So basically what I'm going to do is just going to put some lines across like this and then zigzag this way. That's how it looks on the inside and outside. So we have 4 doors. 2 doors have the outer patch where the walking stick's gonna go underneath like this. Use my scissors. It's gonna be a second door overlapping on top, hiding all of this. And then each on the bottom where you have guidelines, that's going to be reinforced. You may notice this part here is, I was running out of material, so I had to attach a piece here. We're going to be folding towards the wrong side where the patch is, like so, and then again, and then we're gonna stitch it on top twice. That's the way I make it. The way I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on this material, patching material, which is gonna stick well to get me a start, and then I'm gonna walk around, keep going towards the end, and I'm gonna fold it, put a pin, and then catch it with a hot iron just to get a crease so it stays in place. Okay. This is about half an inch, something like this. Okay. Now we're gonna start folding and putting pins in. So I'm folding it once and folding it back like this. Okay. I'll do like, I don't know, 5 inches at a time. I'll fold it, and then I'll put a pin in, and just through, like so. And then what I like to do is I catch it with hot iron, just to crease it. See how round it is here. Even if you tighten it, still keeps on folding. This one you have a nice crease. Ideally I'd like to put a crease here as well, but I have to be really careful not to make a hole here. This is what we have throughout. Okay, so it looks quite nice. Once I start doing, I'll go back and forth once or twice just to reinforce it. And try not to rush, just better slow and steady than a bunch of problems. This spot here is kind of hard and thick because it's got like 4 folds of this reinforcing patch, so go easy. You don't want the needle to break. I might just go manually slow. See, that's what happened. The needle can't go through. Okay, I got this, and one more point. Yep. Seems to be good. And then we continue. So with these creases, it's nice and easy. It doesn't fold out or anything. Oops, I forgot to cut this one. All right. We're gonna stitch 2 doors together. Well, this is one on the sides, 2 doors with patches, reinforcement patches on the bottom, one at the top, another 2 doors over there. So what we need to do is we're gonna put the reinforced one on the bottom of the tin, which is this one, okay? and then put this one on top. Well, we've got this part where we have angle, which is kind of like a mirror, so like a part of a hexagon or something like this right here. We're going to align these two parts as best as we can. Okay, we're going to pin it. I'm just going to check things here, make sure that everything is all right. Stitching the fabric makes it actually bunch up a little bit, so once we have it lined up, we're just gonna stitch it together. There's no hemming involved. We're just gonna stitch it, overlay like this, and do 2 lines, because afterwards we're gonna attach this part to the side part to the door part, and we're gonna stitch it there. But right now we're just gonna do 2 lines. Okay, and my pins are here. So I mean, having had this cut with scissors, you could see some imperfections and whatnot, but don't worry about that. It's all going to be hidden later on. So it's not perfect, but as I stitch around, and you know, you can control how it's attached in a machine. Okay, anyways, done up like this. I find it easier to start maybe right kind of in the middle or almost at the middle. And once I catch the first line, I can always go back and catch the others easier. But in this case, the material is bunching up, it's going to be probably easier. All right, make sure everything's here. Okay, well, I've done the first half of the first line. So I'm doing about I don't know, what do you call it, a 1/4 inch maybe between the seams. In this case, 1/4 inch. That's what is that? 6 millimeters, 5 millimeters, something like that. So the seam is called a modified flat felt French seam or hybrid seam, and it involves 3 stitches. So in first case, we are going to have 2 fabrics put together, wrong side to wrong side, otherwise right side on top. So right side, and we're gonna do a stitch about 1/4 of an inch from this edge. We then going to take this material and then we're going to fold it out this way or inside out, and we're going to end up with something like this. Okay, this is still our first seam, and we're going to put a second seam right across here, which is 3/4 of an inch away from this edge. Now, third thing we're going to do, we're going to fold one of the sides, so let's say the top one, back onto here. So in this case, we're going to have something like this. Fold it again out, and then this one will stay the same. So still a seam number 1, seam number 2, 1, 2, and then we're gonna do a seam number 3 from the top, and this is gonna be a 1/4 inch away from this seam, and 1/2 an inch here for this part. Okay, so again, first a seam 1/4 inch wrong side to wrong side, turn the inside out, do a second seam here, and then we're going to fold one side out this way, and we add a seam here 1/2 an inch for the lip and 1/4 inch from the seam number 2. So our main roof pieces put together. Again, just one hand you hold it here and pull it over on this side. Okay, so we finished now. We've got the wrong side to the top, the right side, the outside side is inside. That's our second stitch right through here. Now we're gonna turn one side, only one side. You turn this way out. Okay, so now this part is, that's the flapping part, that's going to go on the inside of the tent. In other words, this is the wrong side, and the outside of the tent is here. And then about a 1/4 inch from this seam, you're going to put a stitch through here. This is going to be third and the last stitch. As usual, I'll start a couple of times
go back and forth to reinforce it. It's annoying with all this material, but better do it. Important. Okay, all this aligned. So on top we have one seam showing, two on the inside, like this. And this is a flapping part which we can then use to attach different things. Inside of the tent are 1/2 inch flap to which we're going to attach things, and then reinforced. And then we got one on the inside, one here, facing out. So we have this flap now. This is top of the tent, this inside of the tent. We're going to attach something like this. Stitch it. I'm going to attach 6 pieces, 2 at the ends and 4 in between, equal distance. I'm going to feed a short cord, I think. Also 4 of them are one length, so just a small loop, and 2 of them is going to be maybe 1/2 inch bigger, so that I could put my glasses, or I could even clip carabiner through with my light or whatever, big enough. What I suggest you do before stitching it, you just sort of burn off the end so it doesn't fray. So here we are, finished all bits. I planned to do 6, but ended up doing only 5. 2 about 3 inches from the end, 1 in the middle, and 2 in between. Okay, so what we have now is our roof, 2 main pieces put together. Okay, we can attach the ends, one on this side, one here. We're going to use the same seam. At this point, it's important to, when you do this, to attach a webbing if you want to have somewhere in the middle, right, like there. This webbing is going to create a loop where you can use a guideline to attach in the strong winds. Don't have to do it, but I like to do it. You could either use a webbing like this, or in my case, I'm going to use this one in the corners, the reinforced patches. And here I'm just going to use this smaller, thinner one. Attach it like this. That's the simplest way, or you can do it this way. One end and then a second end here, so it's gonna come out like that. Okay. So hey, here's one side attached. Okay, you can see the loop I was talking about. This is how it looks underneath now. So 1/2 inch lip where we're gonna attach the mesh to the side wall. Okay. The important thing, you have the right side and the right side, or the top of the tent, inside of the tent, or the wrong side. You put the two wrong sides together on step 1 and you stitch it. Okay. Then you take it inside out, you stitch it along here, and then you put it back out and you stitch it here. So we'll see that in the process, but right now I'm gonna just use the pins. Quarter of an inch out, more or less. So I'll go down. Just don't rush. Do nice and slow. Couple of I don't know if you can see this, but you know, I mean, you've got these squares and lines. You could actually use it more or less to follow. Okay, lift this up, put it in. Easy peasy. Don't worry about reinforcing here. Once we've done the 3 seams, we could go back and reinforce a couple of times. Okay, so wrong side to wrong side, top side to top side. We've done the first stitch. Now we turn it out like this. So this is the wrong side on top. Okay, turn it out like this. And we put a stitch across the entire fabric, about 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters from the edge. So okay, we finished the second one. The first one is inside there. Second one is here. So just to show you, the flappy part, the lip is on the inside of the tent, so on the wrong side. And then we have our little clip here. Alright, so the next step, to do one seam from the top, we take this one, you fold it like this, and you do about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, a little bit less from this inside seam. And then we're gonna end up with about 1/2 an inch of a lip to attach the netting. Now, one thing I do recommend is this. So, I don't know if you can see, that way is my top of the tent. This is the shorter end of the flap. Just
adjust this so I can show you. Right, so this is the shorter end, that's where the closest to the ground. So when you have this lip, you put it not like this, but put it up like that. And then if you think about it, the water is gonna run along and it's just gonna go down. If you have it the other way around, it might go in and pull and seep. So just a little bit, something that you could do to minimize the leakage. So here we are. We have finished the main roof panels. Okay. So the next step is to connect the roof panel to the door panel. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use the same seam, 3 stitches. The only thing to remember is we need to stick some webbing and a shot cord dongle for rolling up the doors over here on each side, so in 4 places. Just attach the first half of the doors to the roof panels. I'm going to show you how to attach on this side. Couple of things gain from attaching this side. Start from the center, okay, from the peak, and do the first stitching along down to the end of the doors and along that way. It'll make it easier because it's a lot of bunching up over here, okay, when you just try to do it one way, stitching through. The other thing is when you do the second stitch, the one that's you leave about 3/4 of an inch, iron the edge, because that relaxes the fabric and it's not as static and slippery anymore. Because when I stitched it, I found it just keep bunching up and pulling one side more than the other, and then I had to open it up and re-stitch it, and just a nightmare. Okay, so start at the top, make your way down on each side, and then reattach the very center and reinforce the ends. I found that at the beginning that pinning works well. Afterwards you don't need to pin it, maybe do the ironing, and the third stitch it's quite easy, but it's just time consuming, so because you have to hold everything from bunching up underneath. That's it. So I'll just show you now how to do the left side. We've got our doors. We've got center of the roof. And we've got approximate center of door panels. Okay. When you're doing the second stitch, you need to put in your loop. Put it about 15-20 inches from the center. Okay. Anyways, attaching the wrong side to the wrong side, so the good side's on top. This is the most crucial and hardest stitching of the entire project probably you're gonna do, because the panels curve and also the material is very slippery. The more work you do, the more pins and ironing you do, it's gonna be easier for you. So everything is pinned, both sides to the ends.
And it's ready for stitching. Now, one thing you're gonna notice when you do this is that your door is gonna be slightly couple inches, 3 inches, 2 inches longer. Same on both sides. Do not panic. This one's actually a little bit longer. This one's like 3.5. So once we do this stitch and fold it, and then hem this side, it's gonna be smaller, and then we just tuck it and put a patch underneath for reinforcement, so you're not gonna see it. So we're attaching the first part, the wrong side versus the wrong side of the door panels to the roof. Probably the most difficult part of stitching this tent is attaching these. The solution is take it easy, slowly, lots of pins, don't rush. Use the iron to flatten the seams before you stitch, and you might want to hold and pull sometimes because the slippery material doesn't let the machine push it through nicely. So just take your time, just keep in mind, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we are on a second stitch. As you can see here, I've started at the top and where the reinforced material is. So you notice I'm stitching that the material is draping to the side, so it's pulling a little bit, and I'm pulling and holding with then on this side. That creates a nice condition, so it's laying flat. And it looks nice and even. Anyways, I'm going to continue like this until the end, and then do the other half. So what we have here is we've done the second seam. I'm folding mine. This is the door, okay? The rest is roof. I'm gonna fold this. You can see it like this, right? So I'm folding mine towards the door, okay? So laying it flat. And we're gonna stitch about 1/4 of an inch from this seam, another seam. We got about 1/2 inch left as a lip. So I'm gonna stitch it actually from the top. So, and you could kind of see the outline of the lip here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you can kind of see this right along here. Put a seam from the top. It's just gonna go along this. The hardest part is to control this fabric. Okay, so here's an update. Other than the mess in my room, I've got a top of the tent and the side panels stitched together. I've got the loops for the dongle put in, and the last thing I need to do on this, actually the last 3 things, we need to hem along the edges here, okay, and the back right here. We need to put the 4 patches, reinforced patch material at the corners.
Corner 1, 2, 3, and of course I can't move it, 4 here.
The other thing we need to do, we need to put a guideline. So I'm going to attach one of these